Good evening. It's now 6 o'clock. My name is Roger Ty. I'm the Chief of Police for the town of Copper Canyon, and I'd like to call this first meeting of the Crime Control and Prevention District to order. You want to segue anything else, or just I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Gibson.
Yeah, it's great. So thank you for that, Chief. We normally the president or the vice president of this body would open the meeting. We don't have a president or a vice president yet. By the end of this meeting, hopefully we'll have that in place. But I want to talk for just a minute about the CCPD, its role, and how it sort of works with the town and law enforcement, and really what our role is going to be. This is all based on Chapter 363 of the Local Government Code, Title 11, 363. It happens to be the Crime Control and Prevention District Act of 1997. And all of the details and the rules about what we do and how we do it are all in that document. But to summarize in a nutshell, there's two parts of what we do. There's a component of it where this body is a fiduciary to the town on behalf of the taxpayers to handle funds that are earmarked for CCPD. So CCPD isn't Copper Canyon Police Department, it's Crime Control and Prevention District, which is a vehicle that the legislature establishes to produce funding via sales tax to the police department or to programs that support crime control and prevention. So half of it is that we're a fiduciary of these funds. The second half of it is why there's 7 of us and why all of us need to be residents. And that is there's an opportunity to be an interface between the town, but really more importantly, the residents, and to law enforcement. And there's lots of opportunity and choices for us and programs that we could put in place to support reduction in crime. Now, we're all very fortunate to live in Copper Canyon. There's not a lot of crime here, but there is a responsibility. There's both a fiduciary duty and a statutory obligation for us to ensure that we create programs that are that support the mission of the CCPD, which is to reduce crime. And there's a standard for reporting and measuring that. So we have to analyze and document how we're going to analyze how effective these programs are that we've put in place. So part of it is budget. We have these funds that come in through sales tax, and we work with law enforcement, with chief, to decide where those funds are going to go. And then in addition to that, we are looking at options for programs that will engage the public in a meaningful way to support law enforcement to their mission of reducing crime. So any questions that make sense to everybody? Kind of what we were expecting? Okay. So first thing I'd like to do is introduction. Roger, you've introduced yourself. How long have you been the chief?
Since April 1st.
Which is the commencement of the department?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. We have Troy. Why don't you start, Troy?
Troy Meyer, the town administrator, been here just over a year now.
Andrea Doherty, resident of Copper Canyon since 2017.
Sue Tamel, resident since 1991. We had a petition to come into Copper Canyon. We were out in the county, and my neighbors did not want to join a town where you had to pay taxes. And I explained to them that they were either going to be arbitrarily annexed by Denton or Highland Village, and their taxes would be far greater. And so we had a unanimous vote up and down Orchid Hill to petition to be annexed by Copper Canyon.
So you brought Copper Canyon to you.
Actually, yes, gladly.
Dale Andrews. I'm a resident of Copper Canyon and also on the council. We moved here in 2007, literally moved our house here, if you remember, some of you do. And we've been a resident ever since. I've been on the council. This is my second term. And thank you for the opportunity to serve on this board tonight.
I'm Dave Gibson. I've been in Copper Canyon for, I moved here in 2013, I think. Raised my son here, love it. It's my home. I'm a member of the council as well, and grateful for the opportunity to serve on this board and support law enforcement.
As Ken Mosley, also resident of Copper Canyon, my wife and I moved in here in the middle of 22. Thought we'd be in here at the beginning of 21, but the freeze trashed our house. So we rebuilt from ground up on that, but very, very, very happy to be in Copper Canyon.
And my name is Sheila Morales. I've been living in the town since 2001 and became the secretary in 2011.
Got it.
And happy to be here.
All right, so again, normally the president of the board would drive the meeting, but I will fill that role until we have a president. Next up is public input, and I believe we have one public input. Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I think this is a great progress as far as the city's concerned to have this organization, and look forward to a lot of contributions from you. I am Ted Stranzik. I live at 1020 North Berry Trail Court in this wonderful town. My questions have to do in two areas. Number one, the size of this group, but I'll come back to that in a minute. I want to understand better, Dave, the budget. You have a proposed budget here of approximately or $200,000. And is that budget in any way part of the town budget for law enforcement?
So I'm not sure that I can answer the question directly right now, but no, it's separate of the town budget. It is a part of the budget, okay?
I understand that.
It's separate of the funds. So this is captured in the budget that was approved. Now, the individual line items and the allocations is not approved because that's for this body to approve.
Okay. So if I was to just take a casual observation, our present law enforcement budget is approximately $600,000 a year.
That's correct.
Now we're going to add 200,000 more a year. I'm really not sure where all this, of course, you're going to explain later where all this money goes. Okay, so I understand that. But I'm voicing the concern that I can remember when a present council member, Steve Hill, in a council meeting stated that the police department is going to be, over the next 10 years, an average of $500,000 a year. We're already at $800,000, and we're not fully staffed yet with the amount of police force that I believe we want to have in the long run. So all of a sudden, we're going from 500,000 within another year or so to $1 million. This is significant. And I'm just concerned that, is this really a wise use of funds? Is there a better way to do some of this? You have a 7-member board for the police department. We have a 5-member board for the entire town council. I'm just, again, pointing out issues that I think, I know you guys aren't salaried, and I understand that. It's an honor to serve. But we're looking here at a lot of committees being formed by the town. And all of a sudden, there's a lot of money being spent. And I'm concerned that we need to look more closely at how we're handling public funds. I really think that some of this is excessive. And leave it at that.
Thanks for your input, Ted. To answer the second point about the size, it is mandated by the state that it be a 7-member board. This isn't a committee that was formed by the council. It's a separate body. It's a board that oversees the CCPD. So it's different than, say, the P&Z committee or the Financial Advisory Committee. It's a different, it serves a different function.
I'm still concerned about the amount of money that's
Valid
being
points.
spent.
Got it. Valid.
So Ted, to answer some of that, if you look at the town's budget and you look at the revenue side, that 200,000 is reflected in there, but this board will have to decide how those funds are spent. And so some of that 600,000 that you're referring to as the total PD budget could be offset, and that's some of the proposed discussions we'll have tonight. So like for a new police car, for example, there's $82,000 in CIP to purchase a new police car. It's also reflected in this proposed budget as well. So some of those costs will be offset based on the direction from this board.
Yeah, I'll add to that these are outside funds. These are not the funds that are being allocated in the budget, which is not approved, by the way. It's just in proposal stage right now. Those funds are not part of the general fund. This is revenue from the state, from sales tax, that is specifically allocated to the CCPD. Now, the reason that we have a board now, and we did not have a board last year, is because all of that money was allocated to the county previously, because we simply paid the county for law enforcement.
So you're going to be able to generate enough revenue on an annual basis, X taxes. I think it's a 1 cent tax. Is that what it is? That
Yes.
you're going to be funded with?
It's 1%.
1%? Excuse me. Is that $200,000 a year?
It is 132,000.
Yeah, it's 132 roughly, just depending how,
Yeah.
sales tax comes in and the state, we get that information from the state and they send us to that. They send us those dollar amounts monthly.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so next up on our regular items is to elect a president and a vice president and a secretary. There's actually 4 officer roles. There's president, vice president, secretary, and then treasurer. But by default, the treasurer is the person who performs the audit of all town funds. So that's not a role that we'll elect tonight. Tonight we'll elect the president, the vice president. So president leads the meetings. The vice president is there in the event the president is in absentia, and the secretary communicates with the group and the town, and is also responsible for publishing public notices. So is there anybody who would like to elect someone to serve in the president's slot?
I'd like to speak on that just a moment, please. I know this is our first meeting, and we all are town residents, and most of us have known each other, maybe not Troy, and maybe Ken, but most of us known each other other than Roger. We didn't know him since the first of the year. So I guess when I was thinking about this procedure we're going to do tonight, I was thinking what my role might be and what it might not be. And my role tonight, I was asked to serve here by the council as one of the liaisons for the council. And I think I'm just speaking for me now. I'm not speaking for council. I'm not speaking for any group. I'm just speaking for Dale Andrews and my wife. That's all I'm speaking for, my family. I would like to nominate Dave tonight as our president, our first president. I'll tell you why. I've thought long and hard. Everyone here is probably qualified to do this, I'm sure. And, but you know, I've become to know him over the last year very carefully in a lot of meetings, in a lot of closed meetings where we had to really get down, gut level and honest with each other, you know, kind of thing, and know an intent. So I would like to nominate him as our first president because I think he's very articulate. And I guess that shows a little tonight. I didn't know exactly what anybody going to say much tonight. And in fact, I even told Andrea a while ago, I said, I don't really know what's going to happen tonight in the sense of that we're going to nominate somebody and elect somebody. And so I would like to go on record tonight as nominating him. And I don't know if it's proper. I'm sure it is proper because I'd like to go ahead and nominate Sheila as our secretary and of this because, and the other part is, you know, I don't know who fills in the other gap, but I don't want a role in the process. I'd like to withdraw my name from the table if it ever come up. I don't want it. So I'm a supporting group. I'm a supporting person. And, but I think these two that I've nominated will work very hard for the town. And I think they're on top shelf people. Well, you know what, when you really get down to it, you look at this group, other than me maybe, but we got top people here all the way around. I mean, this is the cream of the cream. And I appreciate that.
Honored by that. Dale, thank you for that.
Got some
Anybody
wisdom
else?
here, too.
Anybody else wish to make a nomination?
Question.
Yes,
In the agenda, it says chairman.
it does, and that's incorrect. It's president.
It's president.
President, yes,
Yep,
it is.
yeah.
It's president.
Anybody else want to make a nomination?
I'd like to second Dale's nomination. I don't think we have to elect all three at the same time.
Okay, that's fine.
And I couldn't agree more that Sheila is perfect in that position as secretary.
Thank goodness.
Is Sheila willing?
I'm willing.
Well, maybe we just need to do them one at a time then.
I'll third that, that Sheila would be perfect for that role. You're off the table. You won't do it?
Let me make a motion. I make a motion that we elect Dave Gibson as our president of this board or board. Yeah, it's a board tonight, November 4th.
I don't know if that's a vote or not.
And the Thunder God agrees with me. He had a boy. Go get him, Dale. But thank God we need the rain. We sure did. But anyway, make that
We
motion.
do need to vote on that. So can I hear ayes?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you second?
I second it. Yeah.
Well, she seconded.
Oh, that's right.
She
She-
seconded it. There we go.
Sue seconded.
All right. Thank you all for that. I appreciate your confidence and I will execute accordingly.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
If Sheila were to become the secretary, does that make us an eight-person board?
No, the secretary doesn't need to be a director. So we're directors. She can be the secretary, although she could also be a director.
For what?
No, she has to be a director as well. You need to be a director as well. So you can be both secretary and director.
One short.
So Dave, we're one short because we had somebody back out at the last minute. So we have a vacancy. If you
Got
want.
it. So we'll need to fill that vacancy.
Right.
I second Sheila as secretary, and we need to vote on that. So,
Aye.
aye. Aye, unanimous.
I'd like to nominate Chief as our vice president because I think he's extremely knowledgeable about police affairs. And it helps because the rest of us are more or less learning to an extent. Chief, would you accept?
All right, well,
I second that.
Yes.
So that's for number, you're on 3.
This is for vice president.
Thank you.
Yeah. So vote on it. Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, let's take a look. Next up is regular item number 5, which is the purpose of the CCPD, the purpose, responsibilities, and future meeting schedule. So I want to talk about the meeting schedule first. There is a rigid schedule for approving the budget, recommending the budget to town council, and then scheduling a public hearing for the town council to vote on that budget. And because we have a lost week because of Thanksgiving and a number of travel schedules to deal with in December, we have no room for movement on the public hearing, which is going to be November 18th. So Andrea and I were talking briefly about options for participating in this meeting and not being present. So could we connect by Zoom or by Skype? Is there some way to do that, Troy?
We could more likely do a Zoom call. I could have a laptop set up.
Yeah, and I'll need to check with our town attorney also on the
Okay.
legalities of that, because I
Okay.
know for regular council, the audience needs to be able to see the people and vice versa, and so it makes it a little bit more difficult than just putting a phone ring.
And the audience includes the live stream, correct? So we would need to have an insert on the lives. Okay, so there might be a technical hurdle there.
But we can look into it.
Okay. We'll need to do that. I don't think there's a need to do that yet, but I'd like the flexibility, just in case we need it, particularly for the 18th. The next meeting will be the adoption of the budget and submission to the town council. That doesn't have to be a meeting. That can be an administrative process to report that to the town council. So we don't need to be here physically on the 2nd to do that. Now, we don't have a meeting schedule throughout the year. So some of us have a 1-year term, some of us have a 2-year term. The officer elections last for 1 year. So we'll re-vote on that. Throughout the year, there will be meetings. We don't know exactly when yet. It's going to depend largely on what types of programs we intend to put in place that would require periodic meetings throughout the year. So as we get closer to that and we get a better focus on what we intend to do with the CCPD, we'll discuss that. But my intent is to work that out individually to make sure that everybody can attend rather than setting a hard and fixed date. Let's look at the purpose. So this is the document that's in your folders, the CCPD purpose, mission statement. Yeah. Anybody have any comments, thoughts about this?
If some of the meetings were not, it's set and we're having a difficulty getting a quorum or what if you said something about Skype? What about the ones that could make it, go ahead and make it? Maybe they could set up the Skype to do the other part, to interface with that. Would that be possible?
Make sure I
On
understand.
our meetings, you know, if you happen to have some people that couldn't be here that
Yeah.
day? I mean, it's a way to set a Skype up. In other words, if you.
Yeah, I think there's probably a way to do it. The challenge is going to be, and we'll need to verify this with council, but the challenge is going to be making that board member present to the audience. So maybe that TV up there would work, or
I don't
maybe
know.
we could take an iPad to the chair.
Just something to consider.
Yeah, agree, absolutely. All right, so the purpose, community policing, resource allocation, crime prevention programs, and supporting special projects. Let's talk about the crime prevention programs. There's again, that's the sort of the second piece of what we're doing here, which is engagement of residents. In our in 363, in chapter 363, there's a listing of programs, and I'll distribute this after the meeting, the list of programs. I've gone over them with the chief. You know, some of these are not relevant to us. We don't need a mobilized crime analysis unit. As cool and as exciting as that would be, I don't think that would be a good use of funds. But there are some things on here that might make sense. I know that we have a block watch program. So maybe one of the purposes of this body is to reinforce that. And Chief gave me an anecdote of one instance where that helped them actually solve a problem of what they thought was a crime and turned out not to be a crime. So I think those programs make sense. The ride-along programs might make sense. I'll distribute this list. We don't have to come up with these answers tonight. That's not super important. But we do need to think about what we're going to do. And to the extent that we allocate funds to these programs, there's protocol to follow where we need to, at the same time we establish a program, we also need to establish some means to measure the efficacy of that program. So we need to, at the same time that we're creating it, decide how we're going to know if it actually worked. Next up,
Could I make a comment, please?
please.
Where it says encourage strong relationships between law enforcement and the community.
Yeah.
One of the things that we used to do when we have the sheriff's deputies was each officer on their 40-hour shift would drive every single road in town. And if there was somebody standing out in the yard, they might visit with them for a while or whatever. They never did it during the rush hours. If they had the morning rush hour, the evening rush hour, they were too busy trying to slow traffic down on Shin Chapel, Orchid Hill, and Copper Canyon Road. But the rest of the time, and it also was a way eyes in the town, they would tell us if there's a stop sign that's bent over, or there's a street sign that's crooked and needs straightened up, or whatever it was. There's a tree hanging down where you can't see up and down the road. It needs to be cut back.
I think it's a great idea. What's your thoughts on that?
Officer Jewett, my night shift officer, he's Tuesday through Saturday, so he's not on tonight. He spends a lot of his time because pretty much after the rush hour, traffic dies off in town, and he's like,
That's your time.
he's been stopping out and just talking to folks and
Yeah.
trying to get an idea and a feel for things, and more as opposed to Officer Jewett, he's Rick. So, and that's kind of what we want, the dynamic we want with the citizens, so they're not just like, oh, that's just the cop. Like, no, that's Roger.
Mhm.
And a lot of times you'll have people that don't want to necessarily talk to the police, but
Let's talk to Roger.
I'll talk to Roger, you know, I know him. So, and that's what we're trying to get going.
I like that idea very much, and it's a luxury that we have here, given the small number of residents, and as close as the community is to law enforcement. I like it both ways, frankly, because I like that it supports law enforcement, right? You're not the cops, you're Roger, right? And we talked about that earlier today, and I like that idea in creating your own sort of identity in the community, and that it reinforces, yeah, we love you guys. We want you here. You know, we're supporting what you do, right? I like that side of it. I also like No, frankly, I love the idea of, cop stopping and playing basketball or,
I can't play basketball. I'm not coordinated enough.
soccer.
You
could
got
be
too much
soccer,
stuff
I
on
mean,
your
it could be-
front to play basketball.
Could you imagine carrying all that around
No.
every day? All right, so that's, thank you for that, Sue, that's a great idea.
Andrea wants to
Yep.
speak.
One of the things that I would like, and adding on to what she stated, was I think as residents of Copper Canyon, our physical safety is important. And that's essentially, what officers are designed to do, is to help us protect our safety, our property, and things like that. I would like to see officers either have a program to where they can approach a house if there's some security concern. If garage door is up at 2:00 at night, perhaps the resident forgot. And while we live in a fairly safe, town, it still could be an indication of an issue. And I would, at least in the department that I work for, that they would put either a hanger on the door, or they would knock on the door and say, are you aware, that your garage is open? Because sometimes people forget and it's an unsecure home. So I'd like to see proactive enforcement like that.
Well, next door, we have one of the safest towns, Highland Village, and they have a standard operation for their police department. If a garage door is open during the day even, they will go knock on the door. And if not, they will leave a message. And they have a different standard of how they do things after 10:00 at night. For instance, if you've got high school kids out after 10, or they do a double check on a lot of the cars that are, because that's when you get people out with malcontent and something on their mind that's not legitimate. So they have a whole different way of performing in the town after 10 p.m.
What's your thought on that?
Well, that makes perfect sense. It's actually something we discussed, and we did some door hangers that unfortunately got repurposed for something else, but that's usually the easiest way to, you leave a door hanger, it's got the little patch on it, and says, hey, we stopped, we saw a door open, we made contact, or tried to make contact. Please follow up with us in case something is acted this way. And that's really the best way for that. And some, I've done it before, like, why is the light on still in my car? Because I never closed the back door when I was taking the groceries out. I know better, and even I still do stuff like that.
Fair enough. All right, both great ideas. We don't need to finalize the details on those today, but we will as we move forward. Let's take a look at the budget. So I wish I had a whiteboard to sort of draw this out. And Troy, correct me if I misstate something here, okay? So there's a few moving parts. There's a few moving parts in the financials here. And there's the two big moving parts are the CCPD fund and the revenue related to CCPD. So we have a fund, it's color of a different money. So if we receive money from the state, which is from sales taxes, that is earmarked for CCPD, we can't spend it on something else. We must spend it on CCPD activities. So those dollars go into a fund. Now that fund accumulates over time, right? So if the money isn't spent in 1 year, well, then it's available in that fund the next year. But we can't go get that money out of the CCPD fund and spend it on something else. We are required to spend it on CCPD activities. So there's a small accounting at the top there that starts with 203,000 and ends with a total revenue of 347,000. Now that's not total revenue. That's total fund balance. We call it revenue, but what that means is that at the end of this year, if we spent nothing out of CCPD, there would be $347,000 in that account, assuming that our sales tax revenue is actually $132,000. And we're pretty sure it's going to be about that number. We receive sales tax payments from the state on a monthly basis, and it accumulates over time. Now, below that is the CCPD expenses. So this is a list that the chief built as he would like to allocate $200,000. Now, to Ted's point earlier, this is relieving some of the budget. Okay, so if we spend CCPD money, what that means is that we don't have to spend general or reserve fund money. Okay, so it's in the same account, but it's coming out of a different pocket. Okay, what's that? It's in the same account, but it is the funds come out of a different pocket.
That's right.
Right. So spending this money reduces the burden on the reserve and the general funds. Okay. So Roger and I went through today, and we talked about what each one of these expenses are. Now, this board, our responsibility, our fiduciary duty, in fact, to the town is that these funds are spent in a way that we can prove contributed to the mission, which is to reduce crime in Copper Canyon. Now, that's a little bit difficult when there's not a lot of crime to begin with, right? Statistically insignificant in terms of running an analysis, but we can establish baselines, right? We know what the crime in Copper Canyon was last year, and we can look at it at the end of this year. My guess is that we're not going to have as much crime, but we also have a large increase in population in the town. And with an increase in population is going to come an increase of crime. So our responsibility is to make sure that each one of these costs contributes to reducing crime, right? So the only one that I feel like needs to come off of there right away is the office supplies. I feel like that can come out of the general fund, out of the budget that's already allocated to it. Legal refers to the expenses associated with all of our bonds, okay? And any counsel that we'll need to seek as it relates to this board. We don't have to approve this tonight. That's not the intent. The intent is to ask questions about it. Roger's here. Now's a great time to ask any questions if you're not clear on what one of these expenses are. The only one that I wasn't clear about was the lens lock agreement. That's a subscription to the service that provides the body cam and also the police cars too. Right?
Yes,
The cameras in the cars. Yeah. Any questions about what any one of these expenses are? And by the way, if you don't have the question right now, but you've got it in a week, that's absolutely fine. You can ask the question in a week. Ask me, and I'll make sure that I understand it. I'll get you an answer on it.
Chief, the body cams and cams on the car, they're also audio, aren't they?
Yes.
And you keep the what they're taking for how long?
Approximately 6 months, unless it's tied to a case.
Do you keep it here or do you keep it at the county?
It's in the cloud.
Okay.
I have a question regarding accreditation. It shows for the 24-25 budget, 2,000 for accreditation. Does that mean the police department will be accredited at the end of 2025?
We're going to start looking at it. I was just coming up with a number. I don't think I'm going to spend money on getting software to run. I think it's just going to be pen and paper. That may not get spent. We're just going to start the process because it's usually about a 2-year process to get accredited. So
And
that would be through the Texas Police Chiefs Association.
okay, and has there been any research on what accreditation cost other agencies to get
Yes.
accredited? And so that $2,000 is,
It's a start. It's not going to be, the TPCA doesn't, they're not looking to generate profit when they do the accreditation process. I've already been to the program manager training. Probably gonna send Chris next, just so I'll have at least another person we can do the paperwork on it. But I don't have that documentation there, but it's not much more than $2,000 to do the initial, maybe a little bit more when you have the auditor come down, but that would be a next year issue.
So that cost, is there like a itemization of that, what that would be?
There can be. I haven't done it yet. This is just bare bones, and I'm not married to any of this. This is just kind of ideas and food for thought, like things I'd like to do, but we don't have to do them in this fashion.
Would you put a cost for special events in here or not?
Absolutely, we would. Yeah, if we're going, if that special event is being dictated by this board, then yes, then those costs would need to go in here.
Well, sometimes there's a night out where you have people come and they tour through the police department and they look at what's in the cars and what the policeman is wearing. And that would probably need to be in here.
That's good. What do you think of that?
Well, I was thinking we work, I guess, more closely with the Neighborhood Watch program and actually maybe start actually doing National Night Out. I know I've also been to that training, and it's pretty involved, and it's something that we would have to put a little bit of money into. But again, not knowing what that would cost exactly, it just really depends on how we want to allocate that and when we want to do it.
Yeah.
We obviously don't want to do it like in June when it's 1,000 degrees.
Or December.
One of the expenses that's on here that would capture some amount of special events is the officer salary, staff officer salaries at the top. That's not actually present officer salaries. That's in the event that we needed to hire outside officers for some event. It's for third-party officers.
Would that be overtime? Or if we hired our own officers after duty? Or
Yes, if we wanted to do it that way, absolutely. Yeah, it's creating a budget line item that we can pull out in the event that those types of events are something that we choose to do here, right? Although so there would be a cost associated with a night out, right? Because we would have to have extra officers on staff at the time. Yeah, so there would be some amount of that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'll distribute a list of these programs. I'll take out some of them that are probably not super relevant given our situation. We'll make a few changes to this and I'll distribute that. What's most important about this is that we have to approve a budget. It doesn't have to look exactly like this, but it has to be a budget. We have to approve that budget on November 18th. So we'll have another meeting in here, November 18th. We'll do it at 6 o'clock. And that meeting, this is sort of open discussion. It's, we're kicking around ideas. In that meeting, we will have had to have worked through those things. And the purpose of that meeting is to approve this budget. That we'll vote on this budget, we'll approve it, and then we'll turn it over to the town council. Other ideas that we have, programs that we want to do, to the extent that there is a cost associated with doing those, we need to capture that before November 18th. If these are programs that don't incur incremental cost, like the stopping by and putting the hang tags, there's not an additional cost associated with that. So that's a great program to do. I think it's a wonderful idea. We do it, but it doesn't have anything to do with this budget. It is something that we will put a procedure in place at some point in another meeting.
I have a question about the uniforms. They have uniforms currently, and so is that the 12,960? Do we already know that's necessary to maintain uniforms, or is that proposed for new uniform items, or?
Just kind of general, just seeing what was left in the budget, just adjusting it.
Okay,
And if we grow any, let's say we for some reason adding 2 more officers, well, you know how expensive all that, the kit can be. So it gives us wiggle room. We can always adjust this where it needs to be.
I'll be honest, that seems high to me.
It does.
And then, excuse me, as to the county contract fee, is that sort of like a overflow for services from Denton County?
That's for our contract for 911 and for.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's our dispatch services.
Perfect.
And so how the county works that, it's based on the overall county and how many calls each community receives. And they give each community a percentage based on the call volume. So it'll fluctuate based on what our call volumes are.
Perfect, thanks.
Well, we're too small to have an answering center here. You'd have to be paying people who are around the clock to answer. So we use the county for that.
It's been pretty successful interfacing with the county, and the county understands when we have all communities like ours scattered all over the county, they interface with those anyway. So it's just part of the program that they've set forth to accomplish this goal and this need for the smaller communities.
Correct.
Do you have a sense of what uniform, Andrea, do you have a sense of what that uniform related number should be? 12,960 right now. What's your sense? You said your sense was that it was high. What do you think is
I think it would depend on if there was a uniform need that we were definitely adding. Like if there was going to be a change in gear, that would be different than maintaining the gear that we already have. I mean, damage, obviously you may need to replace a piece of equipment. And I don't know what all constitutes uniform, whether it's, emergency supplies like.
Was that one of the line items where we can combine the patrol rifle program into?
Yes, that's correct. So
Okay,
it would
that
include
might be why it was so high, because we're.
the ammo and
Patrol
all the things that
rifles.
go along with that.
And so when we approve that, would we be able to see how this is
we can
designated
break it
or
out?
just?
Yes.
We can break it out. What did you say, Troy? What was it?
So it was a rifle program, and so if we're going to get new rifles and or for their training that they have to do, so all their ammo associated with that
Got
to go along with that.
Okay. So yeah, let's break that out into a new line item. All right, any other questions right now? This isn't your last chance to ask the questions, but
I have one last.
yeah.
And this is kind of off subject. Well, it's not really off subject, but it's kind of unusual. Let me hypothetically do. I had some Dallas police friends when I used to live in that area, and one of them got into a scuffle with some guys and tore his uniform to smithereens, literally. I mean, I don't know, they were trying to kick him, beat him, and the whole bit. Well, who would replace that uniform? Would that be left up to and I don't know, maybe I should know, but I don't know. Would that be something that this fund would replace that officer's uniform?
We could certainly apply aspects of it.
I mean, because he wasn't out here on a picnic. He was out there running. He was, in fact, what he was doing is running down a railroad track, and they got into it right on top of a railroad track, and the fight was on. And, you can imagine on that kind of rock and gravel and rails and everything else, and he was fighting for his life as well as trying to do his job.
Well, whether or not this budget pays for the replacement or the general fund allocation pays
Okay.
for it, one of those two is going to pay.
Somebody
for
be
it.
covered.
It's certainly not going to be him.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any aspects of an officer's uniform that they provide?
What's the question?
Are there any aspects, any items on the officer's uniform that they provide for themselves?
Our duty weapons and our duty belts.
I have one question. How many people on the board have not toured the police department? One, two,
You guys got to do it. It's really cool.
Good.
three.
It's a really cool. Yeah.
Well, my next question was if the chief would invite us. Would that be all
By all
right?
means,
The door's always open.
yes.
That's what I was
It's not actually open, but if I'm in there, I'll let you.
That's what I mean.
Okay, well, I didn't know whether we need to call ahead or whether we just drop in and
Anytime.
hope it's a good time.
If we're not there, you give me a holler and one of us will come on and let you all in.
Okay, thank you.
A couple of housekeeping items. Has everybody completed their bond application? Does anybody have an open bond application?
I have one.
That's right, you've got one, but that's a legal question.
Yes,
on it.
that's a
Okay.
language. That's, I'm going to fix that.
And have all of them been given to Sheila?
She would know that.
Do you have them all?
I don't, but I saw some of y'all filling them out
Okay.
tonight, so.
It's important that we get that turned into Sheila as soon as possible. We can't hold a position on this board until we've applied for the bond. So those are critical. We need to get those to Sheila as quickly as possible.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Might be appropriate to ask in here, might not. On the CCPD members list, 3 of the members show their addresses 400 Woodland Drive, which is Town Hall.
Yes.
How come that is?
That's a great question, and I don't know. Maybe I'm one of those people. So maybe that's my return address on our website, where my name is listed as a council member. Same thing with Dale. So maybe that's why.
I can change it.
I don't know that it matters. that
I
much.
know that by law, peace officers are allowed to elect an address on their driver's license as Town Hall, and mine is actually 400 Woodland Drive on my driver's license. And so I was wondering.
Can we change yours? Can we change yours? Yeah.
Okay, since it's open records, I mean, if I put somebody in jail, I would rather them not be able to find me because of the,
I didn't know that law enforcement could do that, and I love that idea.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that idea. Yeah, you do that too?
Not anymore. But
You're like
usually
Brady.
in such smaller towns, it's like, and I usually have a marked unit in my driveway, so they're like,
Yeah.
oh, he lives there. So.
Yeah, fair enough.
So if y'all will tear that up, I will agree to it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
Leave it with me and I'll shred it.
Yeah, let's shred it. Why don't we all just turn these in to Sheila right now so that information doesn't get out.
Dave, I'm wondering if it wouldn't be, well, written on the back of mine.
oh,
How about we make a copy of the back of that? Sheila, can we do that? Can we make it? She was using it to take notes.
Okay. Hang it in, sir. I'm wondering if putting your home address wouldn't help townspeople,
Oh, the back is Susan, yeah, Susan.
wouldn't make people feel like we were spread out across the town rather than all sitting in one spot.
I'm sorry, can you ask that again? I don't know that I understood you.
I think when people look at who's on the board, if you give your home address, then people feel like we're maybe spread out through the town rather than listing all 400 Woodland Drive up here.
I hear you. I think it's up to the individual board member if they want to report their home address on it. So if there's no questions, no further questions about this for now, again, it's not the last time we can ask these questions. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Dave, got one other thing to bring up, the training, the open meetings at training.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
that was on the purpose sheet as well. So I didn't know if you want to give some details to that.
Has everybody done that? Has everybody done the, there's two links. Was that in the email?
Yeah, Sheila sent the email.
Yes, it's
In the email?
It's also at the bottom of the purpose page.
Got it. Okay.
But
Yeah,
it's
you're
really
right.
easy.
Okay. Has everybody done that?
Yes.
I
There
haven't.
you go.
I need to do
Good
that.
job.
which email, because I just got an email of November 2nd with that in there. I'm halfway through one of the first trainings, but was there an earlier notification of this training? Okay, so
So
no,
there's-
I have not done it. You have
There's not a
90 days.
deadline to do it. It's not a statutory requirement to serve on the board. But it is a requirement that it get done.
And it appears that you can print out a certificate, so I will do that and provide that.
It's great.
I still have to finish those too.
What's that?
I still have to finish those too.
And you need to get up to speed here.
Yeah, it's fine. Howard.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, Troy? Sheila, anything? All right. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
Second.
You get a first.
Or first,
There you go. Anybody second?
Second.
There we go.
entertain a motion. I got it.
Meeting is adjourned at 6:50. 6:55.
I'd have us vote.
What's that?
You might have us vote. Motion and a second, you need to vote.
Motion and second, say it.
Oh, excuse me. I am so sorry. We do need to
Right,
vote.
we'll get you there.
My first try. Sorry about that. Thank you, Sue. Keeping me honest. We need to vote to adjourn.
Aye.
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 She said aye.
There we go.
She was the first one to say
All
aye.
right. We're adjourned at 6:55.
Thank you, everyone.
I learned that the hard way a long time ago.
I knew where you